Hello everybody, in today's video I'm excited to be starting a new series, and that's going to be my whiteboard series, where now I'm going to be able to draw and explain everything as it comes to mind, where before it was just kind of me streamlining my ideas as they were coming. Now I'm able to kind of draw things out and allow a visual component to it. It's going to make it much easier for me both to teach and for people to learn as well, having the visual component. So that way when I'm speaking, you don't have to try to visualize it, you can see it right here on the board. I also want to give a shout out to Project Kali, my teacher and guru and process of sadhana. I've been doing sadhana for the past 16 months and led through by him through each one of the 18 chakra deities. Before I was kind of pathless, and I was interested in Hinduism, and I was learning the mantras of the deities of the 10 Mahavidyas and Bhairava on my own, but I didn't really have any direction, and so it was really great to get that direction. I highly recommend that you check out his content because he draws on the whiteboard and will explain concepts, honestly much more vastly than I can, and with much more knowledge than I can. I just share what I have and the piece of knowledge that I've been given, which is just different part of the puzzle. But highly recommend you check out his channel if you're interested in learning more content like this. Okay, so we're going to begin. I drew out this morning, and what we have here is these S's here. They represent source. And so what is source? Source is going to be, it's explained many different ways. Source is basically God. The idea is if source is the ocean, then every drop of the water in there is consciousness. But a drop of that water is still part of source, just because that drop of water is still part of the ocean. It's the same way that any bit of life is part of source, meaning that we are all source in the sense. Just because we see ourselves as separate parts, as separate drops, that's the whole illusion of this, is because there is no separation from actual source. As you can see, this is you and this is source, and the illusion that you are not source is what this dotted line represents. And it's once you realize, my cat's having fun behind the camera. Once you realize that this dotted line here is illusory, that's when you can realize your true self and go back to source and realize your true self is that of source. All right, now if we go and we'll start here on this timeline that I have listed out. This is basically a timeline of consciousness. As this increases, your consciousness, your capability of expansion increases. You go and you start from little amoeba and you go all the way to human being, an advanced human being, an astral being, and then a causal being. So it's basically an expansion of this energy, because at the end, the realization is that you are source, you are everything, everywhere, all at once. And so that's basically the idea here. Is that you can see there's really, we begin from source and we also end at source. That's the final place, final stage in evolution is going to be that source. All right, so let's talk about now. I talked briefly about this timeline. I talked all about this chain of evolution, and so we're going to talk about that first. I think I'm going to be able to okay, so as we can see, this line here, this represents from this point to the left, these are all your physical incarnations. From the point on to the right, these are going to all be non-physical incarnations, is the way that it's displayed. From this point onwards, this right here, this is an enlightened being, and so from this point onwards, that's why you kind of see this is not a fully solid line, is because this is an astral being and this is a causal being. That's what this is representative of. You can see here, this is an astral being because he only has his upper body, and you can see these little two circles here represent the two lower chakras that fall off, the root chakra and the Swadhisthana chakra. the causal being here, he's just a floating head, and here I drew Bhairava because really, wherever you're going to, that's going to be your Ishtadevata. Who is your Ishtadevata? Ishtadevata, at the end of the day, that was already predetermined at the very beginning. At the very beginning, when you became an amoeba, this amoeba was specially basically designed that, hey, this amoeba plans to be a Bhairava at the end of the day. So this was already decided. You can't change it at this point. This timeline and this whole continuation of the soul is already headed towards Bhairava. For me. And for somebody else, it might be different. For someone else, it's Kali. For somebody else, it might be one of the other Mahavidyas. It might be one of, it could be Krishna. It could be more so Vishnu. This is who your Ishtadevata is. Ultimately, though, as you can see, whoever your Ishtadevata is, you ultimately end up back at source. So at the end of the day, you're going to end up back at source, no matter which timeline, no matter which branch you take. And the thing is at any point, right, even this enlightened being, if he wanted to realize his true self and himself being source, he could jump right back to source and become right back to, well, the beginning and the end. So that's kind of the case. These are optional paths for someone to take. So that's kind of why you'll have Zen monks, Zen Buddhist monks, and they're interested in reaching source. They're not interested in the causal beings or the astral beings. They're specifically interested in source. Zen Buddhism is meditating within silence. And so that's the goal. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, the idea is we manifested this, we created that, we said that we wanted to do this whole thing. Like we are right now, we're manifesting everything that we see and that is around us. If we didn't want to do this, like this is the thing. Right now we're thinking, why am I back? Why am I here? I didn't want to do this, but you did. This is the you that did. This is the you that wanted to come back. So that's why you're back. And so that's the thing. If you want to manifest things after and become astral and causal being, you can. You can also just say, well, I don't need to do any of that. Let me just jump back to source. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to explain this a little bit more as well, because I'm going to now kind of dive and pivot this conversation into the conversation of evolution. Okay, so we're going to start, like I said, this is source and this is source. So basically everything starts as a seed. That seed is the seed of consciousness, okay? And the first form that we take in physical is an amoeba. That's the first, a cluster of cells is the first thing. And that's the thing, there's not a lot of energy there. It's very small. Not much going on in the life of an amoeba, but it's the start. And then as our soul progresses, we start to slowly learn to utilize the other chakras. And so you can kind of see, you have little fish who used to be swimming in the water. Little fish then learned how to get out of the water and swim around. And eventually this snake, after becoming amphibian and a frog and growing legs and all that, will ultimately become something like a bird. And birds then ultimately, after lifetimes of birds, then you go through lifetimes of mammals and you start to, become more warm-blooded and you grow a heart. Not that these other animals don't have hearts, but once you become more of a mammal, your heart chakra really starts to open up. And that's kind of why you'll see like there are much more nurturing types of animals when it comes to mammals like cats and dogs and things like that. The thing about cats and dogs is they love humans so much. So a lot of the times when they pass, they're thinking about how much they love their owner, right? And so this is a really good way for, owning and loving your cat and dog is a great way to bring them up to higher consciousness, because they're going to be like, I want to be like my master. I hate the word master. I don't even say, seriously, I have my cat. I don't say I own my cat. I'm just like, yeah, he's basically my roommate. Like, he lives with me. 'Cause I don't own him. Like, I never will. Like he's free. He's a free soul. I take care of him. I don't own him. But that's what I was saying. Like, if your dog or your cat loves you so much, then they will become human, because that's what they're thinking about those. Likely chance. If they're a good boy, they will become likely human. And from human, right, we can have many lifetimes as human. And that's the thing. That's where things become a bit different, because once you become a human, different from primate, that's when your first, like your throat chakra opens up, where you're able to communicate much better than any other animal. The ajna chakra opens up, where you're able to, self-inquiry, ask questions, think, question things, and then even the crown chakra questioning existence. And what's important about that, that's why I'm talking about the human incarnations being so much, and I'll add to this at some point, but your human incarnations, in effect, are more profound, because this is where you start to develop personality, and that means that your different incarnations can be split up in different, basically, scenarios of what your soul wanted to live through. Not necessarily that, these things, the evolutionary and the lifetimes that you have to live. Once you become human, it becomes more about ego and about what you want to do, or you expressing the different or various parts of yourselves. Why this is important is because this connection here, from your current self now to you, right? If you can make this connection, then this is the connection to every single other life. This is how you connect to every single other life. So if you can jump back up to here, and you can experience other lives, or you can take things, like in the movie Everything Everywhere at Once, you can take things and skills from other lifetimes, then that's when this becomes the why. Why do people want to do this? That's the genuine why, and the reason behind it is because if I can take, not that, in what case you would want to, but if you wanted to take your abilities or your experiences from being a fish or a snake or a bird, you could do that. But likely more so what the yogis are focused on is not the lives of the past, but more so the lives of the future, right? If this is us now, and we're able to tap in and see lifetimes of, and it's not necessarily future, this is this is talking about the evolution of the soul, because one soul can always jump back. And so it's not just there's no arrows here, because you can slide anywhere on this scale. So we have, if you're able to jump up to here, and then you're able to connect to a life here where you are an enlightened man, or you're able to jump to life here where you're an astral being, or even here, this is the point of sadhana, a causal being, chanting the mantra, Om Shri Kala Bhairavaya Namaha, for instance, is invoking the name of Kala Bhairava. And this is the lifetime that you were trying to get your lifetime as Bhairava. So that's kind of the point of sadhana. And why would you want to? Because this is the one at the end. So he has all the knowledge. This form has all the knowledge. And so this is the form you want to go and look into. Because these other forms, it's like, what much are they going to help you? Like Bhairava already knows all the lifetimes that he's lived, all the astral beings, the multiple astral beings, and all the lifetimes there, and his incarnations seeking enlightenment as human, and his incarnations as all the animals. That's why we're going to Bhairava. That's where a lot of that power from source comes from. Bhairava being the energy from source that represents the wrathfulness, the wrathfulness of God, or even the protective form of God. Wrathfulness being wrathful to protect innocent. All right, I explained this timeline pretty well, and I explained what this was here with source, and this you being your actual you, and this being the point that we want to get to be able to connect to other lifetimes. Now I'm going to talk about something on a more personal level, and that's going to be you right now and how we are right now. And this isn't for everybody, but this is most people, and I'll explain that in a second. So this circle right here, this big ego, this is what majority, like 99.99% of people have, okay? And it's something where, dropping away this false ego, that's basically an awakening. That's like understanding that all this false ego is just the projections that other people have placed onto you, and that those are all false, or that you have put onto yourself based upon your interactions with the world and other things. That is false ego. Like to say, my name, even this, yeah, I'll say false ego here would be, I'm trying to think of an example of false ego. It's anything like, I can use the example of Donald Trump. It's actually very easy. So this is Donald Trump right here, this black dot. That's to say this black dot is representative of his consciousness being connected to source, okay? And this circle, this tinier circle around him, that's Donald Trump's actual ego. There's a difference between false ego and ego. So this is his actual ego. This is to say the consciousness that came down, that wanted to become Donald Trump, and in his truth and who Donald Trump really is as a person, that is what this black circle is representative of. That is representative of who Donald Trump is truly as a person. Or, for instance, who am I truly as a person at the end of the day? Once you drop away the illusory world, the false ego, what is this incarnation? And the thing is, it's not just nothing, it's not just source, because you have many different incarnations. So each of them have a different flavor, a different personality. Each of them will have that black circle, see, around it, because it all is just the sense of ego, why you decided to come down. You can see animals, I only have black dots with them, no circle, because they don't have a sense of ego. They don't have a sense of self, they aren't able to question, they're just in with nature. They're just in with the flow, they're just themselves. They're just bird, they're just snake. And if we just want to be human, then we would just be that black dot, just human. But that circle right there, that's our true innate, like, I'm somebody who likes to watch movies and I want to become an actor one day. And those things are very true about me, and if I try to throw everything out, like that still feels like it's there. That's the reason why I came down. Also, I'm interested in spirituality and I have a connection with Bhairava. That's basically what this black circle is. And around it, that's the false ego. So with Donald Trump, it's all the fake news and the fake media and all the bullshit that is said about him. He's not a perfect person, but there has been false things said about him, and that's true. So that's just what this represents, the false ego. If people are making up gossip about you, that's just false ego if it's not true, right? Or just ways that you see yourself that is not true. Like, any judgments that you really make of yourself is going to be false ego at the end of the day. Until you really understand your own true purpose and why you came back. And you experience ego death. But again, with ego death, you're not completely a zombie. Like, you still have personality, and that's what that circle is. An enlightened man, he realizes that. An enlightened man, he's, out in the mountains, there's no one to put judgment on him anyways, or he's in a monastery, no one there to put judgment on him, and that's why there is no false ego, because he knows himself, and he knows why he's there. And he knows his intention is to get back to source, and that's why there is no false ego around the enlightened man. And then you can see with both these two beings, the causal and the astral being, again, there's really no sense of ego because they understand that they are source. They at this point, you understand that you are source. But you're working your way up there. But as you become an astral being, you're going to have the realization that you understand that. If you want to become that as like an astral being that thrives, because you can definitely become an astral being that doesn't thrive. And you see, because the lower chakras aren't there, decides to then come back down to earth and reincarnate again. So ultimately, that's why enlightened being, that's why it's necessary. Enlightened being to become enlightened, to become an astral being. Otherwise, you can just become an astral being, get projected up, false ego traps him in, and he doesn't get that far, and he reincarnates back on earth. Okay, I hope that video was cohesive, and I hope that I explained everything well. I had a great time making it. Without further ado, J-Mock.